Let me ask you something strange. Imagine you got a raise last year, maybe 10, 15, even 20% more than what you were making before. You were excited. You thought, okay, this is it. Things are finally going to feel different. You'd save more, stress less, maybe even start investing. But then, a few months passed, and somehow nothing changed. You're still checking your bank account with that same low-grade anxiety, still thinking twice before ordering food, still wondering where all the money actually goes at the end of the month. Sound familiar? Here's the strange part. This isn't a spending problem. It's not a discipline problem, and it's definitely not because you're bad with money. What's actually happening to you is one of the most misunderstood economic forces in modern life, and in 2026, it's hitting harder than it ever has before. Your income isn't growing, it's shrinking. And the scary part? It looks exactly the same on paper. We're taught one very simple idea about money from a very young age. More money equals more security. If you earn more, you have more. If you have more, you're fine. That's the deal. Work hard, get paid, feel okay. So we chase income. We take on extra shifts. We push for promotions. We freelance on the side. We do everything right by the rules we were given. But here's what nobody tells you. The number in your paycheck is not the same as the value in your paycheck. These are two completely different things, and most people are living their entire financial lives confusing one for the other. In 2026, the average person is earning more dollars than they were 5 years ago, but those dollars are buying less than they ever have in recent memory. The price of rent, groceries, transportation, insurance, childcare, almost everything that makes up a real human life has risen faster than most people's salaries have. And so we end up with this deeply confusing feeling, I'm making more, but I have less. What is happening? What's happening has a name, and once you understand it, you can never unsee it. That feeling has a name. It's called purchasing power erosion. But forget that phrase. Here's a much simpler way to think about it. Imagine money is water, and your paycheck is a bucket. Every month, your employer fills your bucket with a certain amount of water, let's say 100 units. Now imagine there's a slow leak at the bottom of the bucket. You can't see it. It's quiet, but every single month, a few units quietly drip away, not because you spent them, not because you made a bad decision, just because of how the system works. That leak is called inflation. Inflation simply means that over time, the same amount of money buys you less stuff. A grocery run that cost you the equivalent of 30 units 2 years ago now costs 34. Your rent that was 60 units is now 67. The water level in your bucket keeps dropping, even when nobody is taking water out. Now here's where it gets interesting. Inflation has always existed, it's not new, but the rate at which it moves and the specific things it hits hardest, that changes. And in 2026, the types of inflation that are eating away at everyday people are not the ones that show up neatly in official statistics. Official inflation numbers measure a broad basket of goods, but your life isn't an average. Your life is rent in a specific city, groceries at a specific store, insurance for a specific car and a specific body. And for most working people between 20 and 40, the costs that dominate their real lives, housing, food, healthcare, childcare, have risen dramatically faster than the broad average, which means the official number says one thing, your bank account says something very different. Here's the second layer that makes this even more painful. Even when salaries go up, and they have, at least on paper, wage growth tends to chase inflation rather than lead it, meaning your raise often arrives a year or two after prices have already climbed, so you're always slightly behind, running on a treadmill that's moving just a little faster than your legs. And then there's taxes. When you get a raise, you often move into a higher tax bracket, or at least a bigger portion of your income gets taxed. So your gross salary goes up, but your actual take-home doesn't rise nearly as much. You earned more, but you kept less.
and then prices rose more. And so the gap between what you make and what your money can actually do, that gap quietly gets wider. This is not a conspiracy. It's not some hidden secret. It's just a mechanical reality of how modern economies work. But almost nobody explains it clearly, because when you understand it clearly, you start asking different questions about money. Now let's go deeper, because this isn't just about economics, it's about psychology. There's a fascinating concept in behavioral psychology called money illusion. Money illusion is the human tendency to think about money in terms of its face value, the number, rather than what it can actually buy. If someone offers you a 5% raise in a year when inflation is 8%, your brain registers the raise as a win. You got more. You feel good. But in reality, you just took a 3% pay cut in disguised form. Our brains are wired to respond to numbers, not to the invisible, abstract idea of purchasing power. And the people who design economic systems, salary structures, and pricing models, they understand this deeply. This is also why lifestyle creep is such a powerful trap. When your income rises, your brain says, I have more, so I can spend more. And so spending rises with income. New apartment, nicer car, better restaurants, upgraded phone, all reasonable, all understandable. But if your spending rises at the same rate as your income, and your income is barely keeping up with inflation, you've made zero real progress. You're just living a more expensive version of the same financial reality.
And here's the cruel irony. Because your lifestyle improved, it actually feels like you moved forward. You have nicer things. Your life looks more successful. But financially, you're standing in the same spot, or worse, falling behind in slow motion. This is the trap, and millions of people are in it right now in 2026 without knowing it. There's another layer here that almost nobody talks about. The people who are actually pulling ahead financially, the ones quietly building real wealth, are not necessarily earning dramatically more than everyone else. Many of them are doing something different with what they have. They're converting money into assets. Here's the simplest version of that idea. Money that sits in your bank account or gets spent loses value over time because of inflation. Remember the leaking bucket. But money that gets turned into an asset, a share of a business, a piece of real estate, something that grows in value or produces income, that money doesn't just sit there. It moves, it works, it fights back against the leak. The wealthy don't think of money as a destination. They think of it as a vehicle. The goal isn't to have more dollars. The goal is to have more of the things that dollars can become, things that hold value, generate returns, and compound over time. This is not a secret available only to rich people. This is a concept that anyone can understand and begin applying even in small ways. So what do you actually do with all of this? First, stop measuring your financial health by your income number alone. Start asking what your income can actually buy. Ask yourself, am I really earning more than last year, or am I just earning a bigger number that buys the same or less? This shift in mindset alone changes how you think about raises, job offers, and side income. Second, become aware of lifestyle creep before it happens, not after. Every time your income goes up, have a moment of intentional decision-making. Not restriction, not deprivation, just intention. Ask, what percentage of this increase is actually going to move me forward versus just maintaining a slightly upgraded version of where I already am? Third, and this one is the most powerful, start thinking about how to convert even a small amount of your income into something that works for you. This doesn't mean you need to become a stock market expert or a real estate investor overnight. It means starting to understand the difference between money that sits and money that moves. Even putting a small percentage of your income into an index fund, a simple investment that tracks the broad market, is a way of turning your money into a participant in economic growth rather than a victim of it. Over time, because of something called compounding, that small percentage can grow into something significant. The math is on your side, but only if you start. The reason most people never start is not a lack of opportunity, it's a lack of clarity. They don't understand why their income feels useless, so they assume the answer is just to earn more. And then they earn more. And it still feels useless, and the cycle repeats. Here's the thought I want to leave you with. The problem was never your income. The problem is that nobody ever taught you what income is actually for. Income is not the destination, it's the raw material. What you build with it, how much of it you protect from the leak, how much of it you convert into something that grows, that is what actually determines whether you feel financially free or financially stuck. In 2026, earning money is harder than it looks, but more importantly, keeping the real value of that money and growing it, that requires a completely different kind of understanding than just showing up to work and collecting a paycheck. The leak in the bucket doesn't stop, but you can patch part of it, and you can add more water than what drips out. That's what building wealth actually means. Not earning more, losing less, and growing the rest. Start there.